What is good, YouTube? Warstu here with this Shazam movie review. So if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe to never miss any of the Marvel DC based videos. So we are currently still giving away an Infinity Gauntlet at the end of March. All you gotta do is comment down below what is your most anticipated thing about the Shazam movie if you haven't seen it yet, because when I post this review, it will be when the embargo is lifted and it won't actually come out for 2 weeks, I believe, on the 5th of April. So we got to see Shazam early thanks to Warner Bros. UK in London on Wednesday. Got to go to a pretty cool Shazam fun fair that had Helter Skelter. It had lots of strength based, you know, like the acronym of what Shazam means, like the wisdom of Solomon, all that kind of stuff. So that was pretty fun. Then we got to meet the director of the movie, the producer, Zachary, Mark Strong, which was pretty cool for a little meet and greet before we had a special screening of the movie. So that was pretty cool to talk to the people in the movie and involved with the movie before watching the movie. But of course, that didn't really reflect on what I thought about the movie. So overall, in a nutshell, this movie is solid. It's a solid 8 out of 10. I don't really put numbers, but if you had to put a number on it, it's a solid 8 out of 10. It's a very fun movie that literally anyone could watch this movie and understand exactly what is happening. So this movie is primarily aimed at kids, but it's aimed at adults. So essentially Shazam is a 14-year-old boy who gains the powers of Shazam, and he calls the powers when he says the word Shazam, and then obviously Shazam's out, which is absolutely insane. So you go throughout this movie from a character who doesn't understand why he has the powers or how to use the powers to a kid who is essentially Shazam, who understands how to unlock the true power of Shazam. So it's a basic origin story, but what I like about this is it's really fun, it's really funny, it's really lighthearted, but at the same time, if you are a die-hard DC fan, there are a lot of Easter eggs in this movie, like we've seen in the trailers. There's the Batarang, there's obviously when there's a scene of Shazam throwing Batmans at Mark Strong, who is Dr. Savannah. So that is pretty cool. So if you do watch this movie, there's so many Easter eggs and references to look out for that does prove this is happening inside the DCEU, although there isn't really going to be much of a shared universe going forward. It's kind of got the same vibe as Aquaman is set for. It's funnier, but the only downfall of this, which isn't really a downfall for me, it's actually a massive positive, is there is no love story in this movie. It's pretty much one of the first DC movies where there hasn't been centered around a love story, because essentially Superman is based around a love story. Aquaman is essentially based around a love story. So it's like DC have hit it out of the park again. After Aquaman, after Shazam, DC is doing great things. They are going forward. There wasn't really any boring scenes at all. It was, I think, 2 hours and 7 minutes. Didn't really feel like it was a long movie at all. It was fast-paced. The fight scenes were pretty awesome, although you got to understand it's essentially a 14-year-old boy taking on a fully grown adult. So we do get a backstory for Dr. Savannah of how the character who becomes Dr. Savannah when he's older, how he had the opportunity to be Shazam, but he was tempted by the 7 deadly sins, so he didn't get the powers of Shazam. So essentially, the movie starts with the old Shazam looking to give the powers to a new Shazam because he's essentially going to die, or essentially is dying. So obviously, the villains of this movie will be the 7 deadly sins and Dr. Savannah. So there's a lot of villains in this movie, and it's not overpowering. It's actually one of the strengths, because although there is Dr. Savannah, there is the 7 deadly sins who are kind of creepy looking, but the director for this movie does have a background in horror movies, so it's understandable. So although it is a kind of PG-13 movie, there are a little few scenes that are kind of creepy that you wouldn't expect in this movie. And that is exactly what I was told by the producer before watching the movie, that there's some scenes in here that you would not expect. And yeah, I fully agree with that. So essentially, it's a story about a boy who was given up when he was younger, a foster child who keeps going from home to home to home until he gets to the house with Freddie Freeman. And Freddie Freeman is a massive comic book nerd, super nerd, and essentially Billy Batson ends up staying in a house full of foster kids, and they essentially become the Marvel family that is the Shazam family, who ironically are the foster family in this movie. So we obviously have Eugene, Darla, Pedro, Mary, Freddie Freeman. Essentially, they all become Shazam, or a variation of Shazam, right at the end of the movie. Now, this isn't really going into spoilers, but careful with spoilers, because you can't really spoil this movie, because the movie literally shows you most of the stuff within the trailer. So careful spoilers, we're going into spoiler territory. So it's foster, I guess you say foster brother and sisters essentially do become Marvel's family, which is pretty cool. So then you see, obviously, everyone else in the Shazam suit, which is pretty awesome. And it's kind of obvious because when there's a 7 deadly sins, there has to be essentially 7 people to counteract this. So it's really cool at the end of the movie in the carnival scene where you are seeing literally so many different variations of a variation of the Shazam, but obviously with different powers, which is pretty damn awesome. It's a very vibrant movie that we've not seen for a long time. I'd go as far to say it's just as good as any Marvel movie. Now, I know the channel primarily does Marvel at the moment, but we covered Aquaman, we covered Justice League, we covered a lot of Flash and Arrow, so I am actually a DC fanboy. So this movie, to me, it's just as good as any Marvel movie, pretty much. The rewatchability of this movie is pretty cool, and that's one of the highest things that I judge a movie on whether or not I would re-watch the movie again, because if you're not going to re-watch the movie again, then it wasn't really that good. So like I say, the scenery, it's shot beautifully, it looks beautiful, and it is a low-budget movie. This was filmed in Canada. Generally, companies like to shoot outside of America because it's cheaper, but to be honest, it was pretty cool. The carnival set was awesome. We had a good balance of superhero stuff and obviously the Billy Batson version and obviously the Shazam older version. It is pretty cool. There's such a cool scene when he finds out first he's got powers and he goes and stops a grocery store, I guess people would say, getting robbed, and he's like testing out the powers, and then they get the robbers to shoot Shazam in the face to see if it affects him, and it doesn't affect him, so he is effectively bulletproof. And throughout the movie, he thinks he's invincible until Dr. Savannah comes into play. We find out a massive origin story, and although I did say spoiler warning, I'm not going to give away the whole plot of the movie, but essentially, it is pretty interesting, and it's more interesting than a bunch of movies that I've seen quite recently. So I would heavily suggest you check out Shazam on the 5th of April when it does come out, which when this video goes live, the embargo drops this weekend on the 23rd. So it's literally less than 2 weeks after this video drops to it coming out to the public. Such a cool, fun, vibrant movie. Yes, there is post-credit scenes. There is 2 post-credit scenes. One of them is actually in the trailers, which is kind of funny. Didn't even know that. The second one is, well, I'm not really going to detail. It's a Dr. Savannah-based spoiler post-credit scene, but it's the ending scene that's pretty interesting. The ending scene made the cinema go like, wow, damn, because there were rumors of this scene happening, and we've dropped the spoiler warning, so no one can say anything down below. We've already dropped the spoiler warning. So we do see Superman essentially in this movie, although it's not Henry Cavill, it's not Henry Superman. It's literally just an ending scene where Shazam comes into, obviously, Freddie Freeman's school, but obviously Shazam is Billy Batson, but obviously the rest of the school don't know this. And essentially Superman just rocks him. He's like, I brought a friend. And then everyone in the crowd went nuts, which was interesting. And it does tell me that Warner Brothers are still going to be making a Man of Steel 2 movie in the future. But obviously, because Superman is so iconic to the Shazam character, then you couldn't really do Shazam without having a small cameo role with Shazam appearing with Superman. And I can see why Henry didn't actually take up the cameo role, because if this was the cameo role he turned down, then why would you fly out to Canada just to shoot literally a 5-second scene? Made absolutely no sense to me, but it's pretty interesting. It was a really cool ending scene. gave the ending such a cool vibe. So Zachary absolutely smashed the role of Shazam. I really think they should keep him around, literally put him in any future DC movie, give him a Wonder Woman 2 role, put him in there. Literally, he is amazing in this role. He absolutely smashed it. Mark Strong as Dr. Savannah was amazing. So the cast for this movie was absolutely amazing. So the 2 post-credit scenes, I will reveal them, but it is right at the end of the video. So essentially, it really did remind me of Lex Luthor going insane in prison. So essentially, Dr. Savannah is sitting in some kind of prison cell and paints symbols of the 7 deadly sins on the walls all around him. So behind him is Mr. Mind, one of Shazam's primary foes from the comics. And he delivers some kind of speech saying, "You don't know what's coming. There are many realms." Something like, I can't remember exactly what it is, but if I am wrong, I'm pretty sure it was teasing Mr. Mind at first, and obviously teasing the monsters of the Monster Societies of Evil. But I don't know, it could have been teasing the Black Adam. I'm not really sure, because like I said, my comic book knowledge for Shazam isn't that well versed. But after a conversation with the director, I'm pretty sure it's not teasing Black Adam for Shazam 2. And there is a second one, and the second post-credit scene is a weird one because it's actually in the trailers already if you've seen it. And essentially, it is saying, we have Shazam with a fishbowl saying, "So you can talk to fish, what's the point of that?" And then he's like, "Oh, you can control an empire." Obviously got the Aquaman t-shirt on. So it's obviously teasing a future Aquaman cameo role, maybe with Shazam appearing in Aquaman 2. That would be pretty sick. So that's pretty much it for the review. I do suggest you go and watch the movie. It is pretty awesome. I will be going to watch it again when it does come out on the 5th of April. I didn't go into too much detail, but I didn't really go into full spoilery. It's kind of spoilery, but there will be a spoiler tag in the comment section, in the video description, and most likely in the title. Anyway, guys, please like, subscribe, and comment. And if you've already seen the movie, let me know down below, because obviously a bunch of social media people, reviewers have already seen it. So if you thought the movie was different to how I've interpreted it, let me know in the comments down below, guys, and I will catch you in another video very soon. Catch ya later.